I won the lottery at 75. Not a small prize, not a symbolic win, a life-altering amount of money, the kind that changes how you think about the future immediately, the kind that makes your hands tremble when you read the numbers a second time to make sure they haven't rearranged themselves. I checked the ticket 3 times. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at the wall. At 75, you don't dream about sudden wealth. You dream about stability, about your health holding, about your children being okay, about not becoming a burden. Lottery wins belong to younger people, I used to think. People who still have decades to reshape their lives. I had already shaped mine, or so I believed. When the numbers matched, my first instinct was not excitement. It was fear, not fear of the money, fear of what the money would do. I have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. They are good people, hardworking, imperfect, busy. They call on holidays. They visit when they can. Our relationship is cordial, affectionate in the way adult families become after years of distance and independence. I imagined telling them. I imagined the moment the words would leave my mouth, the shift in posture, the change in tone, the way their minds would immediately begin rearranging the future. That image unsettled me, so I said nothing. I claimed the prize quietly, hired a lawyer quietly, structured everything quietly. I moved the money into accounts that would not draw attention. I did not upgrade my car. I did not renovate the house. I did not change my routine. I went back to my ordinary life. And that was the strangest part, because inside, everything had changed. Suddenly, every dinner conversation carried an invisible weight. When my son complained about his mortgage, I felt the numbers in my account pressing against my chest. When my daughter talked about college tuition for her children, I felt the quiet power of being able to eliminate that worry entirely. And I said nothing. People assume secrecy feels thrilling. It doesn't. It feels heavy. I told myself I needed time. Time to think clearly. Time to observe. Time to see how my family functioned without interference. Money amplifies character. I had seen that happen in others' lives. Inheritances that divided siblings. Windfalls that created resentment. Loans that turned into leverage. I didn't want to become the center of gravity in my children's lives. I didn't want every visit to carry an unspoken question. At 75, I had already lived long enough to understand something uncomfortable. Money rarely solves emotional problems, it rearranges them. So I waited. The first year passed quietly. I adjusted to the knowledge. The number became less shocking, more abstract. I allowed myself small luxuries, better medical care, a few private trips I had always postponed. Nothing dramatic enough to raise suspicion. My children never noticed. That realization stung more than I expected. They didn't notice because I had trained them not to look closely at me. I had spent decades being self-sufficient, independent, not asking for help, not drawing attention. I was the stable parent, the quiet provider, the background foundation. Winning the lottery didn't change that role. It only intensified my isolation. There were moments when I almost told them. During a Christmas dinner when everyone was laughing. During a hospital visit when my health briefly faltered. During a tense conversation about finances when I could have ended the argument with a sentence. I held back every time, because once you reveal something like that, you cannot unreveal it. You cannot return to being ordinary in their eyes. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be extraordinary. I began watching more closely, listening more carefully. I noticed how my children spoke about money, about fairness, about responsibility, about what they felt entitled to and what they believed should be earned. I saw subtle things, comparisons between siblings, old resentments resurfacing during estate planning conversations for other relatives, casual jokes about when we get our inheritance. Inheritance. That word changed tone once I carried my secret. They didn't know the scale of what sat quietly in my accounts. They assumed something modest, a house, some savings, nothing transformative. And I began to ask myself a dangerous question. If I told them, would they still see me? Or would they see the number? Keeping a secret that large does something to your posture. You begin to sit differently at the table, not physically but internally. Every conversation carries 2 versions of you, the one speaking and the one holding back. At first, the secrecy felt strategic, sensible, protective. I told myself I was preserving normalcy. that I was shielding my family from unnecessary distortion. But over time, it became something else. Isolation. There is a loneliness that comes from having nothing. There is a different loneliness that comes from having too much and telling no one. When my children visited, I listened more than I spoke. I watched how they handled financial stress. I observed how they reacted to unexpected expenses. I noticed who complained and who adapted, who blamed and who took responsibility. The money in my accounts became a silent judge in the room. I didn't like that. It changed the way I interpreted their struggles. When my youngest son talked about working overtime to cover medical bills, part of me admired him. Another part thought I could erase this with a transfer. When my daughter confided that she sometimes felt overwhelmed by responsibility, I felt the weight of my silence pressing harder. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If I stepped in too quickly, I would alter their story. Struggle shapes people. So does rescue. I had to decide which I valued more. 10 years is a long time to carry that kind of decision. I watched my grandchildren grow. I paid attention to the way money was discussed in their homes, whether it was treated as a tool or a trophy, whether it was feared or respected. I began to realize that revealing the lottery would not just change my children, it would ripple outward. Birthdays would feel different. Holidays would feel different. Every choice would carry an invisible question. Grandpa, what are you planning? Grandpa, how much is there? Grandpa, who gets what? I've seen families unravel over far less. And I began to notice something else. My children had quietly begun planning around what they assumed would be their inheritance. Not greedily, not maliciously, but casually, as if it were part of the future landscape. They spoke about the house, about dividing things someday, about fairness. They had no idea that the scale of that someday was vastly different than they imagined. Sometimes I tested them without them knowing. I would bring up stories about wealthy relatives, ask what they thought about large inheritances. Their answers varied. One believed everything should be split equally no matter what. Another believed contribution mattered. Another believed the money should go to the next generation. Listening to them debate hypotheticals while knowing the reality felt surreal. The secret began to feel less like protection and more like power, and power isolates you. There were nights I lay awake questioning my motives. Was I truly protecting them? Or was I protecting myself? Keeping the secret meant I retained control. It meant I didn't have to watch how they would look at me differently. It meant I could avoid the possibility that generosity would transform into expectation. At 83, I experienced a health scare, not fatal, but close enough to remind me that time does not negotiate. As I lay in the hospital bed, I imagined what would happen if I died without ever telling them. The shock, the confusion, the reevaluation of every conversation we had ever had. Would they feel betrayed or grateful or both? The idea that my final act might be revelation troubled me. Secrets distort memory. If they discovered everything after I was gone, would they reinterpret my restraint as cruelty? Would they assume I didn't trust them? Would they question every small gift I ever gave? For 10 years I told myself I was being wise. Now I wasn't so sure. Money has a strange way of turning you into a strategist when you might be better served as a father. 10 years is long enough for a secret to become part of your identity. I am 85 now. The money is still there, invested carefully, managed quietly, growing in ways that no one around me suspects. My children still see me as they always have, modest, stable, comfortable, but not extraordinary. And I have begun to understand something that unsettles me more than the money ever did. The secret has changed me more than it would have changed them. For 10 years, I have been living in two realities. In one, I am their father, aging, predictable, occasionally stubborn. In the other, I am the silent architect of a fortune that could rewrite all of our futures overnight. That duality has shaped how I speak. It has shaped what I withhold. It has shaped the distance I feel even in moments of closeness. Because here is the truth no one prepares you for. When you carry a secret of that magnitude, you stop feeling fully known. Even if you chose the secrecy, even if you believe it was wise. There have been evenings when my daughter sat beside me, telling me about her worries, and I felt an ache that had nothing to do with money. It was the ache of being partially invisible by choice, of knowing that the full picture of my life was never on the table between us. You cannot be entirely intimate while withholding something that large. But revealing it is not simple either. If I tell them now at 85, it will land differently than it would have at 75. They will see the timing. They will understand that this was not accidental. They will know I chose a decade of silence. And they will ask why. I ask myself that question often. Why did I really keep it secret? Part of it was fear of entitlement. Part of it was fear of conflict. Part of it was a desire to observe who they became without interference. But there is another part I must admit. I like the control. Control is intoxicating, especially late in life when so much feels out of your hands. Your health declines, your energy fades, your influence shrinks. Holding a secret like this gave me leverage against irrelevance. It allowed me to feel powerful in a quiet way. That realization humbles me, because money, even when hidden, can distort you. It can make you believe you are wiser than you are. I have drafted 3 different estate plans in 10 years. One divides everything equally. One allocates based on need. One gives a significant portion to causes outside the family entirely. Each version reflects a different emotion: fairness, pragmatism, disillusionment. The fact that I have not finalized any of them tells me something important. This is not just a financial decision. It is a relational one. If I die without telling them, the revelation will arrive as shock. It will change how they remember me. It will reframe holidays, conversations, every moment where they believed they understood the full scope of my life. If I tell them now, I must be ready to watch their faces change in real time, to see calculation enter their eyes, to feel gratitude mixed with expectation, to risk the very distortion I feared in the first place. There is no perfect path. Winning the lottery at 75 did not make my life easier. It made it more complicated. It magnified questions about trust, about control, about what love should look like when resources are no longer scarce. The strangest part is this: the money has never made me happier. It has made me more cautious, more observant, more analytical, but not more connected. I sometimes sit at the same kitchen table where I first checked the numbers 10 years ago. I remember the shock, the trembling hands, the disbelief. I thought the hardest part would be managing the money. It wasn't. The hardest part has been managing the silence. I still don't know what I will do. Perhaps that uncertainty is the final lesson. Money gives you options. It does not give you clarity. Clarity comes from understanding what you value most: control or connection. If I tell them, I risk changing everything. If I stay silent, I guarantee that something will break after I am gone. I won the lottery at 75. I kept it a secret for 10 years. And now, at 85, I am left with the realization that the greatest cost was not in dollars. It was in distance. And I must decide before time decides for me whether I want to be remembered as the father who protected his family from distortion, or the father who never trusted them enough to share the truth.